Imagine opening a chest, not full of gold, but filled with books so ancient that they could change the way we see the world forever. However, a few of these books faced outright prohibition. It all starts a long time ago in a world where people didn't just believe in gods, they feared them. Angels walked among humans, giants roamed the earth, and secrets whispered across the heavens. The Book of Enoch tells us about this mysterious world. It talks about fallen angels who disobeyed God and shared forbidden knowledge with humans. This book was banned from the Bible. Did you know there are other stories about Jesus that didn't make it into the Bible? Some of them claim he had a wife. Others say he had brothers and sisters. There's even a story about Mary Magdalene, one of his closest followers, that makes her sound like a hero. But that version of her story was hidden too. Some people think the leaders of the early church wanted to control what we know. They didn't just pick and choose the stories they liked. They might have left out the ones they thought were too dangerous. Centuries ago, the Bible as we know it didn't exist. Instead, countless writings, scrolls, and accounts about God, angels, and Jesus were circulating among believers. These early Christians faced a daunting question. Which stories were true? Which were sacred? Which ones should we exclude? One of the most fascinating writings was the Book of Enoch. It described a world filled with giants, known as the Nephilim, and angels who defied God by sharing forbidden knowledge with humans. This book was ancient even in Jesus' time, written around 300 BCE to 100 BCE. It was considered important by Jewish and early Christian communities, quoted even in the New Testament, Jude 1:14-15. But by the 4th century CE, church leaders excluded it from the Bible, and some say this book was simply too controversial. Its tales of fallen angels and their forbidden acts raised uncomfortable questions. They also excluded other writings, such as the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. This gospel portrayed Mary Magdalene not as a background figure, but as one of Jesus' closest followers, possibly even a leader among his disciples. However, church leaders in the early centuries were hesitant to embrace a narrative that gave a woman such authority. At a time when societal norms viewed women as secondary, this gospel was a threat to the hierarchy. In 325 CE, Emperor Constantine called the Council of Nicaea not to decide the books of the Bible, but to address a different controversy. Was Jesus fully divine, fully human, or both? The council denounced Arianism, a belief that God created Jesus but did not make him eternal. This decision reinforced the divinity of Jesus, shaping Christianity forever. Nicaea did not determine the canon of the Bible, but it was part of a broader movement that solidified which teachings would define Christianity. By the 4th century, lists of approved books, what we now call the New Testament, had become widely accepted among Christian communities. These books included the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as well as letters written by Paul and others. However, they excluded writings such as the Book of Enoch and the Gospel of Judas. They didn't align with what church leaders deemed orthodox or the correct teaching. It's impossible to separate these decisions from the political and social dynamics of the time. The Roman Empire, once a persecutor of Christians, became a Christian empire under Constantine. By the late 4th century, Christianity was the official religion of Rome. To maintain unity, the church sought a single, cohesive narrative. The church excluded books that challenged this unity, such as those that emphasized Mary Magdalene's leadership. Remember to join our community by subscribing to this channel. This wasn't just about theology, it was about control. A unified religion helped stabilize an empire, but it also meant silencing alternative perspectives. Faith is a journey, not a destination. For some, it starts at birth, shaped by family traditions. For others, it's a hard-won path of questions, doubts, and unexpected answers. This part of the story dives into the deeply personal struggles and revelations that come with belief, and what happens when history, miracles, and faith collide. Living in a religious household can provide a sense of comfort and security. For a child raised by a pastor and missionary, the stories of the Bible weren't just lessons, they were life itself. Jesus wasn't a distant figure, he was a constant presence. But believing as a child is simple. Only when life presents its challenges does faith undergo testing. Imagine being 11 years old, full of energy and promise, only to wake up one day unable to feel your legs. A young boy with acute transverse myelitis, a rare neurological condition, paralyzed him from the waist down. Doctors told him and his family the prognosis was grim. He might never walk again. The road ahead seemed filled with darkness. For weeks, the boy endured endless tests and therapy that felt pointless. Yet, exactly 1 month after he first lost sensation, he woke up, swung his legs off the bed, and walked to his wheelchair as if nothing had ever happened. The doctors were in a state of shock, referring to it as a miracle. For the boy, it was a moment that shaped his faith forever. But miracles alone don't answer every question, and that was just the beginning. Faith can feel invincible in childhood, but as the teenage years hit, doubts creep in. What if the lessons you've received represent only a single interpretation of reality? What about other religions, other beliefs, and the different stories they tell? This young man, now grappling with his faith, began exploring questions that felt too big for easy answers. Who was Jesus, really? Was he a historical figure or something more? Could someone genuinely believe tales that have endured for millennia? What about other sacred texts like the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita? Could they be just as valid? His family, steeped in missionary work and exposed to multiple cultures, had shelves filled with books like the Quran, the Book of Mormon, and the Hindu scriptures. They saw these as tools for understanding the broader world, not as forbidden or dangerous. And so he read them, seeking answers. The Bible, unlike other texts, is not a single book. It's a collection written by over 40 authors across 1,600 years, in 3 languages and on 3 continents. This anthology of writings tells a complex, interconnected story, making it unique among ancient scriptures. But even that uniqueness didn't erase the questions. If humans wrote it, how could it be perfect? One of the most striking realizations during this journey was how much faith depends on history. Events like the resurrection of Jesus are not just spiritual claims, they are rooted in eyewitness accounts. These stories aren't merely parables, they claim to describe actual events in time. For instance, Jesus' crucifixion is one of the most well-documented events from antiquity. Not only do the Gospels recount it, but Roman historians like Tacitus and Jewish scholars like Josephus also confirm it. Yet believing in something as extraordinary as resurrection isn't easy. It requires faith in the unbelievable. The boy, now a young man, faced a dilemma. Did his faith stem from evidence or his upbringing? And if it was evidence, how reliable was it? These questions led to a deeper exploration of the New Testament and the processes that shaped it. He learned that while historical evidence supports much of what's written, there are always gaps where faith must step in. What's most remarkable about this journey isn't just the search for truth, it's the understanding that faith doesn't have to mean ignoring doubt. For the young man, his miraculous recovery from paralysis wasn't a proof of faith, but a reminder of its mystery. His parents, who never prayed for healing, taught him that faith isn't about demanding outcomes. It's about trusting in something greater, even when the outcome is unclear. This realization reshaped his view of faith. It wasn't a rigid belief system, but a living, evolving relationship with the divine. Faith could coexist with questions, and doubt didn't mean disbelief, it meant seeking deeper understanding. For anyone on a similar path, the message is clear. Faith isn't about having all the answers, it's about embracing the questions and trusting the process. Whether your journey starts with a miraculous event, like walking after paralysis, or with quiet curiosity, It's uniquely yours, and it's okay if that journey takes you to unexpected places. Religion has always been more than personal belief. It's a force that shapes empires, influences societies, and creates cultural movements. Christianity is no exception. From its humble beginnings to its rise as the dominant religion of the Roman Empire, faith has been about power and spiritual truth. When Jesus lived, the Roman Empire was the most powerful force in the world. Stretching across Europe, North Africa, and parts of Asia, it thrived on strict control. Christianity, with its message of love, equality, and a kingdom not of this world, was a direct challenge to that control. The Romans intertwined religion and politics. Worshipping the emperor as a god symbolized loyalty to the empire. Christians, however, refused to bow to anyone but Christ. People not only found this defiance strange, but they also considered it treasonous. People labeled the early Christians as troublemakers, a group that disrupted social order by rejecting Rome's gods. Emperors like Nero used Christians as scapegoats for problems like fires or plagues, branding them as enemies of the state. Nero infamously used Christians as human torches to light his gardens. This persecution continued sporadically for centuries, with Diocletian unleashing one of the harshest crackdowns in the early 4th century. In a surprising twist of history, the Roman Empire went from persecuting Christians to embracing Christianity. This dramatic change began with Emperor Constantine. In 312 CE, Constantine claimed to have a vision of a cross in the sky with the words, "In this sign, conquer." After winning a critical battle, he converted to Christianity and issued the Edict of Milan in 313 CE, which decriminalized the faith. But Constantine's conversion wasn't purely spiritual, it was also political. By aligning with Christianity, he united a fractured empire under a common belief system. In 325 CE, he convened the Council of Nicaea to settle disputes among Christian leaders, particularly over the nature of Jesus. Was he fully divine, fully human, or both? The council affirmed Jesus' divinity, a decision that shaped Christianity forever. While the Council of Nicaea didn't determine which books belonged in the Bible, it symbolized the growing power of the Church. Christianity, once a persecuted faith, was becoming the foundation of the empire itself. As Christianity gained influence, leaders began to shape its teachings to create unity. This included deciding which texts were part of the canon. Books like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and the Book of Enoch were left out, not necessarily because they were untrue, but because they didn't fit the narrative that church leaders wanted to promote. For example, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene portrayed her as a prominent disciple, even a leader. In a patriarchal society, this challenged the male-dominated structure of the church. Excluding such texts wasn't just a theological decision, it was a political one. The Book of Enoch faced a similar fate. Its vivid accounts of fallen angels, Nephilim, and forbidden knowledge raised uncomfortable questions. Could these stories undermine the church's authority? Leaders may have feared that such narratives would confuse or divide believers. Are you enjoying the story? Support our channel by clicking the subscribe button. Fear is a powerful motivator, and it played a significant role in shaping early Christianity. Fear of heresy drove the exclusion of certain books. Fear of division led to a unified set of beliefs. And fear of losing control pushed leaders to align the church with political power. This dynamic is still relevant today. Fear of the unknown often dictates how societies handle religious differences. We see this in debates over the role of religion in schools, politics, and cultural identity. The tensions that shaped early Christianity continue to ripple through modern times. Christianity's rise didn't just transform the Roman Empire, it reshaped the world. The church became a powerful institution, influencing art, philosophy, science, and governance. Even now, many Western laws and moral codes trace their origins to Christian teachings. However, this influence came at a cost. The dominant narrative silenced voices that didn't align with it. texts presenting alternative perspectives either disappeared or remained hidden. While this created a unified faith, it also erased a richer, more diverse understanding of early Christianity. Understanding the cultural context of Christianity's rise helps us see it not just as a spiritual movement, but as a social revolution. The decisions made centuries ago continue to shape our world, from how we think about faith to how we govern ourselves. Religion often exists in a delicate dance with reason, each one pulling in its own direction. For thousands of years, faith has given people hope and meaning, while philosophy and science have sought explanations for the mysteries of existence. But when it comes to Christianity and the Bible, some of the most profound questions emerge. What is truth? How do we trust the stories passed down through time? And what happens when history and belief don't seem to align? At the heart of philosophy is the question, what is true? For Christians, the Bible has long been considered the ultimate source of truth, a sacred collection of writings inspired by God. But the process of compiling the Bible wasn't as straightforward as many imagine. It involved centuries of debate, human decisions, and cultural influences. So how do we know what's in the Bible is accurate? Philosophically, this leads to the question of epistemology. How do we know what we know? Christians believe the Bible is divinely inspired, but skeptics might argue it's a human document, subject to error and interpretation. The challenge lies in reconciling the spiritual claim of divine truth with the historical reality of human authorship. Take, for instance, the resurrection of Jesus, a cornerstone of Christianity. From a purely historical perspective, it's an extraordinary claim that defies natural laws. Multiple accounts, including the Gospels and the writings of early Christians like Paul, support this claim. Could so many people have been wrong, or does the sheer volume of testimony point to something beyond our understanding? Faith requires belief in things unseen, while philosophy often asks us to trust only what we can observe or prove. This tension creates a philosophical dilemma. Should we believe in something if we can't fully prove it? The resurrection is a prime example. Roman historians like Tacitus and Jewish scholars like Josephus confirm Jesus lived and was crucified, but no historical record can scientifically prove he rose from the dead. For believers, this is where faith steps in. It's not about proving the impossible, it's about trusting in the possibility of miracles. However, critics argue that miracles challenge reason itself. How can we break natural laws that govern the universe? Philosophers like David Hume, who questioned the reliability of miracles, believed they were more likely to be fabrications or misinterpretations. But others, like C.S. Lewis, saw miracles as moments when God temporarily bent the rules of nature for a higher purpose. Another key issue is the reliability of the Bible's authors and compilers. Can we trust people who lived 2,000 years ago to preserve truth without letting their own biases slip in? The concept of confirmation bias is crucial here. It's the tendency to interpret information in a way that supports one's existing beliefs. For example, early Christian leaders who decided which books to include in the Bible may have excluded writings that didn't fit their vision of the faith. Could their biases have shaped the Christianity we know today? On the other hand, many scholars argue that the Bible's diversity of voices makes it more credible. Written by more than 40 authors over centuries, it includes poetry, prophecy, history, and personal letters. This variety shows a complexity that's hard to fabricate. It's not the product of one mind or one agenda, but a tapestry woven from many perspectives. One of the most debated questions in philosophy is whether faith and reason are mutually exclusive. Must belief in the supernatural mean abandoning rational thought? Theologians like Thomas Aquinas believed they could work together, arguing that reason can lead us to faith. For example, studying the complexity of the universe might inspire belief in a creator. But what happens when faith contradicts reason? Stories like Jonah surviving 3 days in the belly of a giant fish or the creation of the world in 6 days challenge scientific understanding. To some, these tales are allegorical, teaching moral or spiritual lessons rather than literal truths. Others insist on a more literal interpretation, creating tension between science and religion. This divide extends to debates about the origins of the universe, the role of evolution, and even the nature of consciousness. Can science and faith find common ground, or are they destined to clash forever? The relationship between faith and reason is as old as humanity itself. It's a story of seeking answers, wrestling with doubt, and finding meaning in the mysteries of life. Whether you approach it from the perspective of a philosopher, a scientist, or a believer, the questions remain the same. Who are we? Why are we here? And what, if anything, lies beyond this world? People, leaders, scribes, and believers did not hand down the Bible as we know it in a single moment. Leaders, scribes, and believers shaped the Bible by selecting which stories to tell and which to omit. Books like the Book of Enoch and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene were discarded, not necessarily because they were untrue, but because they didn't fit the vision of a unified church. These choices created the foundation of Christianity, but also left behind unanswered questions. If you're finding value in this journey, take a moment to show your support by clicking the Super Thanks button. By contributing, you're helping us keep uncovering these fascinating topics, sharing knowledge, and diving deeper into the stories that shape our world. Every super thanks helps us keep growing, reaching more people, and creating even better content. It's your way of being part of this journey, standing with us and saying, let's keep searching for the truth together. What if those excluded books held pieces of the puzzle we're still trying to solve? What if they offered insights into Jesus' humanity, the role of women in faith, or the cosmic battle between good and evil? These forgotten voices remind us that history is never complete. It's a living conversation, shaped by what we choose to remember and what we let fade away. The tension between faith and evidence is a paradox we all navigate. Faith invites us to trust in what we can't see, while reason pushes us to question and explore. Together, they create a delicate balance. But what happens when that balance tips? Stories of miracles, resurrection, and divine intervention challenge the boundaries of what we understand. They ask us to believe in something greater, something beyond the limits of logic. For many, that leap of faith is the core of belief. For others, it's a reason to doubt. But perhaps faith was never meant to erase doubt. It was meant to guide us through it. The stories that didn't make it into the Bible aren't just relics of the past. They're echoes of a broader narrative. They remind us that history is rarely simple. The decisions made by early church leaders weren't just theological. They were cultural and political, designed to unify and strengthen a growing movement. But what did we lose in the process? The Book of Enoch paints a picture of a world full of mystery, rebellion, and divine judgment. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene gives a voice to a woman whose role in Jesus' life may have been far greater than we know. These stories may not be part of the canon, but they challenge us to think deeper about what we believe and why. The questions left behind by these hidden stories are just as important as the answers. They prompt us to inquire, to what extent does power shape our understanding? How do we separate faith from control? And most importantly, what does it mean to seek truth in a world where so much is uncertain? Perhaps the real beauty of this journey isn't in finding all the answers. It's in learning to embrace the mystery. Faith, after all, isn't about knowing everything. It's about trusting that the story is bigger than we can see. As you think about the origins of Christianity and the decisions that shaped it, remember that this isn't just history. It's part of your story too. Whether you're a believer, a skeptic, or somewhere in between, the search for truth connects us all. These ancient texts, these forgotten voices, they belong to humanity, not just a single faith. So what will you do with this knowledge? Will you let it inspire deeper faith, provoke more questions, or lead you to explore the stories left untold? The choice is yours. But one thing is certain, the journey doesn't end here. It's only the beginning. Thanks for watching. Join our community by subscribing to this channel until the next video.